My beloved brothers and sisters, let me speak to you honestly today. Some of you are listening to this with a heavy heart, not because you failed, but because people walked away. The calls stopped. The messages slowed down. The support you thought was permanent vanished. And now you are left asking a painful question: why am I alone? Let me correct something immediately. You are not alone. You are being repositioned. Allah does not strip a servant of people to humiliate them. He removes distractions to strengthen them. What feels like abandonment is often divine preparation. When everyone leaves, Allah is not punishing you. He is calling you back to yourself and back to Him. This is where real rebuilding begins. When you have no one left, Allah is teaching you where your reliance truly was. Let us slow this down and be honest, because growth never happens through comforting lies. Many of us say we trust Allah, but our emotional behavior exposes something else. Our tongues mention tawakkul, yet our hearts panic the moment people withdraw. That contradiction is not hypocrisy out of evil intent. It is immaturity of reliance, and Allah in His mercy corrects it. Ask yourself this question without excuses. When things were going well, who made you feel safe? When things went wrong, who did you run to first? When you felt weak, whose presence stabilized you? If the answer is people before Allah, then your reliance was borrowed, not rooted. People become emotional crutches without us realizing it. Their messages calm us, their approval reassures us, their presence gives us a sense of identity. Over time, we confuse support with source. Support is allowed, source is not. Allah never prohibited companionship, but He never allowed dependence. This is why the collapse feels so painful when people leave. Not because you are weak, but because something false was carrying weight it was never meant to carry. Understand this clearly. That collapse is not failure. It is exposure. Allah exposes what you were leaning on, so you stop leaning on it. Tawakkul is one of the most misunderstood concepts in Islam. People think tawakkul means saying Allah will take care of it while still needing constant reassurance from creation. That is not tawakkul. Tawakkul is internal stability even when reassurance disappears. It is calm obedience without guarantees. It is moving forward without applause, without backup, without emotional cushioning. Tawakkul is not tested in comfort. Anyone can trust Allah when life is full of people, support, money, and validation. That trust costs nothing. The real test comes when Allah removes the visible means and asks you to walk anyway. This is where most people fail. When the support system disappears, panic enters the heart. The mind spirals. Why did this happen to me? What did I do wrong? Why am I being punished? These questions reveal an assumption that Allah's presence was tied to people staying. It was not. Allah was always there. You were just too distracted to notice. When Allah removes people, He is not asking you to suffer meaninglessly. He is asking you a silent question that pierces the heart. Was your strength coming from them or from me? And here is the uncomfortable truth. If their absence breaks you, then their presence was replacing Allah in ways you did not intend but allowed. This is not a condemnation, it is an invitation. Allah wants you to know what it feels like to stand without leaning, to breathe without reassurance, to pray without emotional bargaining, to obey without witnesses, to trust without outcomes. Why? Because a believer who only functions with people around is fragile. One loss, one betrayal, one departure, and they collapse. But a believer rebuilt on Allah alone becomes stable. People can come and go, and the heart remains upright. This is why Allah sometimes removes everyone at once. If He removed them one by one, you would replace one crutch with another. So He clears the room completely and says, now look at me. And when you finally do, something shifts. You realize that peace does not come from being understood. Strength does not come from being supported. Worth does not come from being chosen. It comes from being anchored. Standing with Allah alone does not make you arrogant. It makes you grounded. You stop begging people to stay. You stop explaining yourself excessively. You stop negotiating your dignity for comfort. You stop panicking when silence enters your life. You become still. And stillness is strength. This is why no absence can break you again once this lesson is learned. because you are no longer outsourcing your emotional survival. You are no longer dependent on unstable sources. You no longer collapse when people change because your foundation does not move. People are allowed to support you. They are not allowed to hold you up. When Allah becomes the center of your reliance, people become additions, not necessities. Their presence is appreciated, not required. Their absence is felt, not devastating. This is what Allah wants for you. Not loneliness, not pain, not isolation for its own sake, but inner independence tied to Him. And once that reliance is corrected, Allah often brings people back into your life in healthier ways, not as crutches, but as companions, not as emotional lifelines, but as fellow travelers. But first, the lesson must be learned. If you have no one left right now, do not rush to replace them. Do not numb the silence. Do not escape the exposure. Stand there. Let Allah show you that He was always enough. Solitude is not a punishment. It is a training ground. Most people misunderstand why being alone hurts. They think the pain comes from the absence of people. That is not the real source. The pain comes from the sudden removal of distraction. When people are around, noise fills the space. Conversations, validation, attention, routines, expectations, all of it keeps you occupied. It keeps you from hearing yourself. It keeps you from facing what is unresolved inside. Solitude removes the noise. And that is why people fear it. When you are alone, there is no audience to perform for, no one to impress, no one to reassure you that you are doing okay. You are left with your thoughts, your habits, your fears, and your relationship with Allah. Whatever was weak becomes obvious. Whatever was neglected becomes loud. This is not cruelty. This is clarity. Allah does not isolate a servant to break them. He isolates them to teach them. Solitude is not a sign of rejection. It is a sign that Allah wants your attention undivided. Think carefully about this. If Allah wanted to destroy you, He would keep you distracted. He would keep you surrounded by people who numb your discomfort and delay your growth. Distraction is easy. Refinement is not. Solitude forces honesty. You begin to notice how quickly your mind looks for escape. You reach for your phone. You seek noise. You want company, not because you love people, but because silence feels uncomfortable. That discomfort is the lesson. It is showing you where your inner stability is weak. A strong heart can sit quietly without collapsing. A fragile heart panics when there is no stimulation. Allah wants to strengthen your heart, not entertain it. This is why so much spiritual growth happens in quiet moments, late nights, early mornings, long walks, moments where no one sees you struggling or striving. These are the moments where sincerity is born, because there is nothing to gain from pretending. In solitude, your dua changes. You stop speaking beautifully and start speaking honestly. You stop repeating phrases and start exposing fears. You stop asking for small comforts and start asking for strength, guidance, and clarity. This is real worship. Many people pray when life is full. Few people pray deeply when life is empty. And yet, emptiness is where Allah fills the heart properly. Solitude teaches patience in a way people never can. When you are surrounded by others, impatience is masked. When you are alone, impatience has nowhere to hide. You want results quickly. You want relief immediately. You want change now. Allah uses solitude to slow you down and teach you endurance. Endurance is not dramatic. It is quiet consistency when nothing is happening. This is why solitude feels heavy at first. Your nafs is not used to discipline without reward. It wants stimulation. It wants affirmation. It wants proof that the effort matters. Allah withholds that proof for a while, so your intention becomes pure. Are you improving because people will notice, or are you improving because it is right? Solitude answers that question. It also teaches you self-regulation. When people are around, emotions are shared, diluted, softened. When you are alone, emotions must be handled internally. You learn how to sit with sadness without self-destruction. You learn how to manage anxiety without reassurance. You learn how to calm anger without external validation. This is emotional maturity. A believer who cannot be alone is not ready to lead, love, or carry responsibility. Solitude prepares you for all three. It trains you to become a safe place for yourself before you expect others to be one. And here is an important truth many ignore. Allah often isolates people before elevating them. Not because elevation requires loneliness, but because elevation requires clarity, discipline, and strength. You cannot carry responsibility if your emotions collapse without support. You cannot guide others if you are still afraid of silence. You cannot lead if you need constant approval. Solitude strips away these weaknesses quietly. When this lesson is learned, something changes. You stop seeing loneliness as something to escape. You start seeing it as something to use. Time becomes an asset. Silence becomes productive. Reflection becomes deep instead of uncomfortable. You become less reactive, less needy, less desperate. And ironically, this is when people are often drawn back to you, not because you chase them, but because you are no longer chasing anything. Stability is attractive, calm is powerful. Self-control commands respect without asking for it. But that comes later. Right now, if you are alone, do not rush this phase. Do not label it as depression prematurely. Do not assume something is wrong with you. Ask instead, what is Allah teaching me here? Because solitude, when accepted instead of resisted, becomes one of the greatest teachers of your life. It will not flatter you. It will not rush you. It will not comfort you immediately, but it will rebuild you correctly. And a heart rebuilt in solitude is not easily shaken when noise returns. Losing people does not mean you lost value. It means your value was never dependent on them. This is where many hearts break unnecessarily. When people leave, the mind immediately turns inward with accusation. I wasn't enough. If I were better, they would have stayed. Something must be wrong with me. These thoughts feel convincing, but they are not truthful. They are emotional conclusions, not realities. Let us be clear and logical. People leaving your life is not a measurement of your worth. It is a reflection of limits, sometimes theirs, sometimes the situation, sometimes the stage of life, and sometimes Allah's plan overriding human preference. If worth were proven by who stays, then the best of humanity would have been the loneliest failures. But history proves the opposite. Value is not crowds. Value is substance. Many people confuse being liked with being valuable. Being liked is easy when you are agreeable, available, useful, or entertaining. Being valuable often requires growth, boundaries, truth, and change. And change makes people uncomfortable. Growth exposes differences. Boundaries remove convenience. So when you evolve, some people do not leave because you became less. They leave because you became more than they could engage with. This is not arrogance. This is reality. There are people who can only love you when you stay familiar. The moment you outgrow the version of yourself they were comfortable with, tension appears, and rather than adjust, they withdraw. This does not mean you failed. It means the relationship was conditional on your stagnation. Allah allows this separation so you stop tying your self-worth to fragile attachments. Here is another hard truth. Some people were never attached to you. They were attached to how you made them feel. When you could no longer provide that feeling, attention, validation, availability, emotional labor, they lost interest. That is not love. That is consumption. And Allah removes consumers from the lives of believers so they stop being depleted. Understand this carefully. If your value came from people staying, then your worth would rise and fall daily. One disagreement would destroy you. One misunderstanding would collapse you. One season of isolation would erase you. Allah does not build believers on such unstable ground. Your value comes from who you are in the sight of Allah, from your sincerity, your effort, your character, your intention, and your striving. None of these disappear when people leave. In fact, many of them strengthen when the crowd is gone. But the nafs struggles to accept this because the nafs wants proof. It wants external confirmation. It wants to be chosen, affirmed, prioritized. When that disappears, the nafs panics and assumes worth has vanished. That assumption is false. You were worthy before they came. You are worthy while they are gone. And you will be worthy if others come later. This lesson is critical because if you misunderstand it, you will chase people who were never meant to stay. You will over-explain yourself. You will compromise your values. You will shrink your boundaries. You will accept disrespect just to feel chosen again. And that desperation will cost you far more than the loss ever did. Allah does not want you rebuilding your life from a place of self-blame. He wants you rebuilding from self-respect. Self-respect begins when you stop equating abandonment with inadequacy. Look back honestly. Did everyone who stayed treat you well? Did every person who remained add value, peace, or growth? Of course not. Yet their presence made you feel validated, so you overlooked the cost. Now that they are gone, Allah is asking you to reassess your definition of value. Is it numbers? Is it approval? Is it familiarity? Or is it integrity, growth, and alignment with truth? This is why many people feel stronger after the initial pain passes. Once the shock fades, clarity enters. You start seeing things you ignored. You realize how much energy you were spending to maintain connections that were draining you. You notice how much quieter your mind becomes. You breathe differently. That is not coincidence. That is correction. A person who knows their value does not beg to be chosen. They allow alignment to decide. They stop auditioning for roles Allah never assigned them. They stop trying to be everything for everyone. They stop interpreting departure as a verdict on their worth. They understand something deeply important. Not everyone is meant to walk with you into every season. Some people are lessons. Some are companions. Some are mirrors. Some are tests. When their role ends, forcing continuation only creates damage. This is why Allah removes people without explanation sometimes. If you had closure, you would negotiate. If you had answers, you would argue. If you had reassurance, you would cling. Silence forces acceptance, and acceptance restores dignity. Your value does not need to be defended. It needs to be understood. Once you internalize this lesson, you stop internalizing rejection. You stop personalizing absence. You stop reading your worth through other people's limitations. You stand differently, you speak differently, you choose differently. And from that place, rebuilding becomes possible. Not frantic rebuilding to prove something, but calm rebuilding rooted in knowing who you are. And that kind of rebuilding lasts. Allah rebuilds you by breaking unhealthy dependence, because dependence on creation slowly weakens the heart even when it feels comforting at first. Most people do not realize they are dependent until the support is removed. While people are present, dependence disguises itself as love, loyalty, or closeness. You think you are simply connected, but in reality you have tied your emotional stability to something that is temporary by design. Allah allows this for a time because human beings learn through experience, not theory. Eventually He intervenes. Unhealthy dependence is when your inner peace is controlled by someone else's behavior. Your mood improves when they give attention and collapses when they withdraw. Your confidence rises when they approve and disappears when they criticize. Your sense of worth becomes tied to being needed, wanted, or chosen. This is not strength. This is vulnerability disguised as attachment. Allah does not want His servant living in emotional bondage. So He removes the attachment not to punish you but to free you. The pain you feel is not because the person was your source of strength, but because you mistakenly treated them as one. When the illusion breaks, it hurts. Illusions always hurt when they collapse. Allah rebuilds you by taking away the crutch, so you are forced to discover that you have legs. At first, this feels terrifying. You feel exposed. You feel unsupported. You feel as though something essential has been ripped away. But slowly, something else happens. You begin to realize that you are still standing. Your heart still beats. Your life still moves forward. The world does not end because someone left. That realization is the beginning of independence. Independence does not mean you stop loving people or valuing relationships. It means you stop outsourcing your emotional survival. You stop expecting people to regulate your feelings, fix your pain, or complete you. You take responsibility for your inner state and anchor it in Allah rather than in unpredictable human behavior. This is where dignity is restored. A dependent heart negotiates its values to avoid abandonment. It stays quiet when it should speak. It tolerates disrespect to preserve connection. It overgives to earn security. Over time, this erodes self-respect and creates resentment even toward those you depend on. Allah removes the attachment before that. Resentment poisons your heart completely. Breaking dependence is not gentle. It cannot be. If Allah eased you out of it slowly, you would return to it. So He allows a sharp separation that forces you to confront reality. The pain is intense because the lesson is important. When you stop depending on people, you stop begging for emotional safety. You stop chasing reassurance. You stop living in fear of loss. This does not make you cold. It makes you grounded. Your relationships become choices, not lifelines. Your love becomes sincere, not desperate. This is why a believer rebuilt through loss carries a different presence. They are calm without being distant, confident without being arrogant. They do not cling and they do not chase. They engage fully, but they can also let go. That balance only comes from having survived without dependence. Allah knows that a heart enslaved to people cannot be fully devoted to Him. Every fear of losing people becomes a fear that rivals trust in Allah. Every attachment that controls your peace competes with tawakkul. So Allah intervenes decisively. What feels like abandonment is actually alignment. Alignment of your heart back to its true source. Alignment of your strength back to its proper foundation. Alignment of your expectations back to what is real. People are limited. They get tired. They change. They misunderstand. They leave. Allah does not. Depending on people guarantees instability. Depending on Allah creates resilience. When this lesson settles, something remarkable happens. You become emotionally self-sufficient without becoming emotionally closed. You enjoy companionship without fear. You appreciate support without needing it. You accept loss without collapsing. You can be alone without feeling empty. And when Allah brings people back into your life, they come differently. They are additions, not necessities. Their presence enhances your life instead of holding it together. Their absence no longer threatens your stability. This is why Allah rebuilds you by breaking unhealthy dependence. He is not taking something away to harm you. He is removing what was weakening you so He can strengthen you properly. The pain passes. The clarity remains. The strength stays. And the heart that learns to rely on Allah alone becomes unshakable no matter who comes or goes. Rebuilding from within requires silence, not explanation, because real transformation is fragile in its early stages and easily damaged by exposure. When people leave your life, there is a powerful urge to speak. You want to explain yourself. You want to defend your intentions. You want to correct misunderstandings. You want to be seen as the good one, the reasonable one, the one who was wronged. This urge feels justified, but most of the time it is driven by wounded ego, not wisdom. Silence at this stage is not weakness, it is protection. When you are rebuilding, you are unstable in a quiet way. You are learning new habits, reshaping beliefs, correcting reliance, strengthening faith, and disciplining your emotions. This work requires focus. Explaining yourself drains that focus. Every explanation pulls your attention outward toward people's opinions, reactions, and judgments. Allah wants your attention inward and upward, not outward. People do not need to understand your healing for it to work. In fact, most people will misunderstand it anyway. Some will downplay your effort, some will doubt your sincerity, some will project their own guilt onto your silence. Some will accuse you of changing too much, becoming distant, or becoming cold. If you try to satisfy all of them, you will delay your own growth. Allah knows this. That is why He teaches rebuilding through quiet action rather than public performance. Silence removes the temptation to seek validation. When no one is watching, you find out whether you are truly committed or just motivated by approval. When no one praises your discipline, you learn whether your effort is sincere. When no one reassures you that you are doing well, you are forced to rely on Allah's acceptance instead of people's applause. This is how intention is purified. There is also another danger in speaking too much during rebuilding. When you talk about change before it has taken root, your nafs feeds on the idea of improvement instead of the work itself. You begin to feel accomplished simply because you described your intentions. This creates a false sense of progress and weakens follow-through. Silence keeps the work honest. When you rebuild quietly, your focus shifts from image to substance. You stop worrying about how you look and start caring about who you are becoming. You stop rehearsing explanations and start correcting behavior. You stop chasing sympathy and start building resilience. Allah values this kind of effort because it is unseen. And what is unseen is usually more sincere. Silence also teaches restraint. You learn that not every pain needs to be shared and not every misunderstanding needs correction. Some things are between you and Allah. Some wounds heal faster when they are not exposed repeatedly. Constantly revisiting pain through conversation keeps it alive. Silence allows it to settle and eventually fade. This does not mean suppressing emotions. It means choosing where to release them. Dua replaces complaint. Reflection replaces argument. Patience replaces justification. This internal processing is slower, but it is deeper and more stable. A person who rebuilds in silence becomes less reactive. They stop explaining themselves to people who have already decided how they see them. They stop arguing with those committed to misunderstanding. They stop proving their worth to those who benefit from doubting it. They become selective with their energy. This selectivity is not arrogance. It is maturity. You learn that your energy is limited and valuable. You stop spending it on conversations that lead nowhere. You invest it in prayer, discipline, learning, and character. Over time, this investment compounds. Another reality many avoid is this: some people only respect results. They do not respect explanations. Talking convinces no one who has already judged you. But consistent growth changes the dynamic without a single word. Silence allows time to do the talking for you. And if time never clears your name in their eyes, that too is information. It tells you who was never meant to understand you. Rebuilding quietly also aligns you with Allah's way. Allah does not announce transformation. Seeds grow underground. Roots deepen unseen. Foundations are laid before structures rise. Loud growth is often shallow. Quiet growth is strong. This is why many of the strongest believers were unknown during their rebuilding phases. They were not impressive yet. They were consistent. They were patient. They were sincere. And when Allah decided the time was right, the results appeared naturally without effort. Silence does not mean isolation forever. It means discipline for now. There will come a time when your growth is stable enough to be shared, when your wounds are healed enough to be spoken about without reopening them. But that time is not at the beginning. At the beginning, silence is mercy. If you are rebuilding right now, resist the urge to narrate your journey. Live it. Resist the urge to defend your absence. Let it be. Resist the urge to prove that you are okay. Focus on becoming okay. Allah sees the work even when people do not. And when rebuilding is done properly, you will not need to explain who you became. It will be evident in your calm, your boundaries, your discipline, and your reliance. Silence builds what noise destroys. Let Allah complete the work without interruption. What remains after everyone leaves is your true foundation. And this is the most uncomfortable truth most people spend their lives avoiding. When people are around, life feels padded. Conversations soften the edges. Distractions fill the gaps. Responsibilities are shared. Emotions are diluted and weaknesses are hidden. You can survive for years without knowing what actually holds you together. Then Allah removes the noise and suddenly you are left standing on whatever foundation you built when no one was watching. This moment is confronting because there is nowhere to hide. When everyone leaves, excuses stop working. You can no longer blame your lack of growth on being busy with people. You can no longer blame your weak iman on social pressure. You can no longer blame your inconsistency on circumstances. You are left with habits, discipline, and sincerity exactly as they are. This exposure feels harsh, but it is necessary. Allah does not reveal the foundation to shame you. He reveals it so you can rebuild it correctly. A cracked foundation must be exposed before it can be reinforced. If it remains hidden, the structure above it will eventually collapse. Many people collapse later in life because Allah was never allowed to show them the weakness early. When everything is stripped away, you discover what you truly rely on day to day. Is your prayer consistent without encouragement? Is your character intact without witnesses? Do you maintain discipline when no one is expecting anything from you? Do you still turn to Allah when there is no emotional reward? These questions cannot be answered honestly while surrounded by people. This is why solitude often reveals uncomfortable gaps. You realize how much motivation came from external pressure. You notice how fragile your routines are without accountability. You feel the weight of inconsistency that was masked by busyness. None of this means you are hopeless. It means you are being shown the truth while there is still time to fix it. A weak foundation is not a verdict. It is information. Allah is merciful in how He delivers this information. He removes distractions so you can focus. He reduces your obligations so you can rebuild. He slows your life down so you can strengthen what was neglected. If He wanted to destroy you, He would let you continue living on a faulty structure until it collapsed completely. Instead, He intervenes early. Rebuilding the foundation is slow and unglamorous. There is no applause for waking up early to pray when no one knows. There is no praise for resisting temptation when no one is watching. There is no recognition for choosing discipline over comfort in silence. But this unseen work is what creates stability later. A person rebuilt on a strong foundation does not panic when life shakes. They do not crumble when people leave again. They do not lose direction when plans fail. Their stability comes from within because it was built there intentionally. This is the difference between borrowed strength and earned strength. Borrowed strength comes from people, routines, environments, and circumstances. Earned strength comes from repeated private choices made in alignment with Allah. Borrowed strength disappears when conditions change. Earned strength stays. When Allah leaves you alone with yourself, He is asking you to earn your strength. This lesson also teaches you to simplify. When life becomes quiet, you see how little you actually need to function. You realize that many things you thought were essential were merely comforting. You learn to survive with less stimulation, less reassurance, less validation. This simplification is not loss, it is purification. A purified foundation is lighter and stronger. As you rebuild, you begin to replace weak supports with solid ones. Discipline replaces motivation. Consistency replaces bursts of effort. Commitment replaces mood. Trust in Allah replaces fear of outcomes. These changes do not happen overnight, but they happen steadily when distractions are gone. Eventually, you start noticing something important. You no longer feel the urge to rush back into noise. You are no longer desperate to fill the silence. You feel grounded in a way you never felt before. Even if life is still hard, it is no longer chaotic inside. That inner order is proof that the foundation is strengthening. When people return to your life later, you engage with them differently. You are no longer looking for them to stabilize you. You are already standing. Their presence becomes enriching rather than necessary. Their absence becomes manageable rather than devastating. This is why Allah waits until the foundation is strong before He adds weight. A heart that has been tested in solitude can carry responsibility without collapsing. A person who has learned to stand alone can stand anywhere. A believer who has rebuilt from the ground up does not fear future losses because they know exactly what remains when everything is stripped away. What remains is not empty. It is faith that was tested, character that was chosen, discipline that was earned, and reliance that is no longer theoretical. That is a foundation worth building. And once it is built, nothing temporary can destroy it. When you no longer need anyone, Allah sends the right people because dependence attracts the wrong connections and stability attracts alignment. This lesson comes last because it only works when the earlier ones have settled properly. Many people misunderstand this stage and rush toward it too early. They think the goal of rebuilding is to be surrounded again. It is not. The goal is to be whole. Companionship is a byproduct, not the objective. When you need people to feel complete, your standards drop without you noticing. You tolerate what you should question. You accept what you should decline. You stay in situations that drain you because loneliness feels worse than disrespect. Neediness clouds judgment. It makes red flags look manageable and incompatibility look like something you can fix. Allah does not want you forming bonds from hunger. So He delays connection until your heart is stable enough to choose wisely. When you finally reach the point where you are calm alone, something changes in how you show up. You stop trying to be impressive. You stop overgiving to secure a place. You stop shaping yourself to fit other people's expectations. You are not performing anymore. You are present. That presence is clarity. People who are wrong for you feel uncomfortable around someone who does not need them. They sense that manipulation will not work, guilt will not work, and emotional pressure will not work. They realize they cannot control your peace, so they drift away quickly. This saves you time and energy. At the same time, people who are healthy recognize stability immediately. They feel safe around it. They are not threatened by your independence. They are not suspicious of your boundaries. They are not offended by your calm. They respect you because you respect yourself. This is how Allah protects you through strength rather than isolation. The people Allah sends after rebuilding are different from those who left. They do not demand constant access to your emotions. They do not collapse when you say no. They do not interpret boundaries as rejection. They add value instead of consuming energy. And importantly, you relate to them differently too. You no longer cling. You no longer rush intimacy. You no longer fear abandonment. You let relationships unfold naturally. You allow time to reveal character. You observe actions instead of chasing words. You trust slowly, not because you are closed, but because you are discerning. This discernment is not suspicion. It is wisdom earned through loss. Another important change happens here. You stop needing relationships to prove that you are healed. You stop using people as confirmation that you are okay now. Whether someone stays or leaves no longer defines your progress. Your peace does. This removes pressure from relationships and allows them to breathe. When relationships are not burdened with emotional survival, they become lighter and healthier. There is room for honesty without fear, distance without panic, differences without threat. This is the kind of connection Allah wants for you. But notice something crucial. Allah sends the right people only after you stop demanding that He send anyone at all. As long as your heart is desperate for companionship, you are not ready for it. Desperation distorts intention. It turns dua into bargaining and patience into impatience. When you are content with Allah alone, your dua becomes clean. You ask for what is good, not what is urgent. You accept delay without resentment. You trust timing without anxiety. This is when Allah opens doors. Sometimes He brings people back from your past, but on new terms and with new boundaries. Sometimes He brings entirely new people who fit the version of you that emerged after rebuilding. And sometimes He keeps your circle small intentionally because depth matters more than numbers. Do not measure success by how many people return. Measure it by how little you fear being alone again. A person who has rebuilt properly is not afraid of future loss. They know they survived before and they know how to stand again if needed. This confidence removes desperation and replaces it with quiet assurance. And this is where true freedom lives. You are no longer controlled by attachment. You are no longer driven by fear. You are no longer defined by who stays. You are connected but not dependent, open but not empty, loving but not lost. This is why Allah waits. He does not withhold people to punish you. He withholds them to prepare you. And when preparation is complete, what enters your life is more aligned, more stable, and more respectful than what left. But even if no one enters for a while, you are still whole. Because the greatest success of rebuilding is not finding the right people. It is becoming someone who no longer needs the wrong ones. And once you reach that place, whatever Allah adds to your life is a gift, not a requirement. That is strength. That is maturity. And that is the end of rebuilding, not the beginning. My beloved brothers and sisters, if there is one thing I want you to leave with today, let it be this. Losing people did not mean you lost direction. Being alone did not mean you were abandoned. The silence you walked through was not empty. It was working on you. Allah was not removing comfort to break you. He was removing dependence to rebuild you correctly. Every moment you stood without support, every night you held yourself together with dua, every day you chose discipline over despair, Allah was shaping something inside you that cannot be taken away. What you built in silence is stronger than what you lost in noise. Do not rush to return to what Allah saved you from. Do not chase replacements for lessons. Let this rebuilding settle. Let your reliance remain where it belongs. If Allah is enough for you now, then nothing in this world can truly harm you. And when Allah decides to add people back into your life, they will not complete you. They will complement you. Stand firm, trust the process, and remember always, a heart rebuilt with Allah does not collapse when the world shifts. May Allah grant you strength, clarity, and unwavering reliance upon Him.